Well, good afternoon, DEC members and guests. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club, coming to you from lovely downtown Detroit. A couple of quick announcements before we get started. I want to take a brief moment to thank the terrific DEC sponsors for their continued support of our mission, and you are seeing them on your screen. And I also want to thank you for continuing to support the DEC with your membership. A couple of quick programming notes. A week from today, we will host our beloved Detroit Tigers, and that means we'll hear from General Manager Al Avila and new manager AJ Hinch. And yes, I stayed up last night watching the no-hitter, and it was really exciting. And in June, we've got the Mayo Clinic CEO joining us. In between, plenty of other events for you, so get those on your calendar and get your tickets. You already know how important it is to the DEC that high school and college students are included. And today we want to say welcome to students from University of Windsor, Cornell University, Wayne State University, Schoolcraft College, and the following high schools: Southeastern, Dakota, Ben Carson, Waterford Mott, and yes, I saved the very best for last, students from my alma mater, Albion College. So welcome to all of you students. And the DEC has an incredible history of speakers, and our speaker today joins a distinguished list of 11 others who, in our 87-year history, have addressed the DEC on this day, May 19th. And beginning with a speaker way back in 1947, that list includes Chairman of the Federal Reserve and the SEC, the President of the New York Stock Exchange, and two names I'm sure you'll recognize, Alan Greenspan, and the President of France, Giscard d'Estaing. And today we are pleased to add Dan Shulman as our 12th speaker on this day in DEC history. Dan, of course, is the President and CEO of PayPal and is leading PayPal to reimagine how people manage money and how merchants and consumers interact and transact. I could probably spend our next 30 minutes on the accolades Dan has received, but I'm going to only name the most recent, and it's a big one. Just last week, Dan was named to Fortune's World's Greatest Leaders list in the number 3 spot, just after the Prime Minister of New Zealand and the mRNA pioneers. And that is a big deal. And he is the top business leader on the list. And that honor is a wonderful testament to his leadership and commitment to stakeholder capitalism, which we're going to discuss shortly. Dan previously held executive/CEO positions at American Express, Sprint, Virgin Mobile, Priceline, and AT&T. He earned his BA from Middlebury College, go Panthers, and an MBA from NYU's Stern School of Business. He's a former quarterback. Today is quite active in the martial arts. We are so pleased Dan would carve some time out for us this morning from the Bay Area. So let's give a warm Detroit Economic Club welcome and say hello to Dan Shulman.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. Really great to be here.
Great to have you. So before we get started, Dan, I was fascinated with your interest in and active participation in the martial arts. Tell us what you like so much about it.
Well, I think initially I was attracted to martial arts more probably on the physical side than on the philosophical, mental side. But as I've gotten older and as I've practiced more and more, and I spar almost every single day, it's just taught me a ton about myself, mostly about humility, because no matter how much you know, every time you get into the ring, you're going to be usually hit hard, and you always know you've got so much more to learn. So philosophically, it helps me everyday life and in business as well. So I love it. I recommend it for everybody.
Love it. Dan, I want to share some staggering stats with our members that maybe give some context to our conversation. PayPal does business in more than 200 countries and deals in more than 100 currencies. Last year, you processed over 15 billion payments with a value of $936 billion. And during the peak holiday shopping season, I love this, you processed 1,000 transactions per second. You lend more than $1 billion every quarter, much of it directed towards small businesses in banking deserts. Your stock price has seen a 200% increase since the 2015 spinoff from eBay. Incredible numbers. And through all this, you've thrived in the pandemic and you responded with helpful actions And even before that, your investment in your own employees was groundbreaking. So let's start here with this notion of stakeholder capitalism. It's a term we've heard much more frequently over the last couple of years. You've long been a believer in it. So what's your view on stakeholder capitalism, and why do you think it's become a greater focus for the business world today?
I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous it's taken so long for stakeholder capitalism to become more in vogue. I really think about stakeholder capitalism as thinking about our companies being part of our communities. I mean, how in the world can we separate the ultimate enduring nature of our companies without thinking about all the constituencies around us, from employees to customers to our communities, in our part to our regulators, as well as to our shareholders. But, you know, it's simple and easy to maximize profitability in the short term. You can cut back your hiring, you can cut back on your marketing, on your R&D. But that seems to me to be the surest way to maximize your success, maybe in a shorter term, but minimize the possibility of your success over the longer term. And for me, I don't think there is any way for business leaders today, for CEOs, to not think more expansively about our roles. I don't think we can leave all of the problems that face us as a society to government leaders, to the public sector. I think the private sector needs to step up. And I think we really need to make statements and take actions that are consistent with a set of values that are much more expansive than just short-term profitability.
Can you reflect back, Dan, the last 12 to 18 months, just maybe share some examples of how you've put stakeholder capitalism into practice for your employees and communities? And I also, please include your groundbreaking employee financial health survey and what came out of that initiative.
Well, I think the number one constituency that any CEO serves is their employees. That has to come first. I mean, if you don't have the best, most passionate, committed, skilled, diverse set of workforce, there is no way that you can be successful over the long term. There's one study after another that has proven that. And so for me, putting our workforce first and foremost in terms of the constituents that I serve was an easy decision for me. And doing that also forced me to think about the financial health of our own workforce, because there's been a lot of talk about, you know, what should a minimum wage look like? And clearly the pandemic basically laid bare the fact that so many people in the world, and maybe as much as 185 million Americans, struggle to make ends meet at the end of the month. And I did a survey of our employees. Honestly, Steve, I thought the results were going to come back really positive, which is one of the reasons I did the survey, because, you know, PayPal pays either at or above market rates in every location that we hire employees across the world. And I did the survey asking people about their financial health. You know, did they struggle to make ends meet? And what I found is that for almost 50% of our employee population, they were financially stressed. They were choosing between food on the table and healthcare benefits. They clearly struggled every month to pay their bills. They had to borrow money in between paychecks. And this was eye-opening for me. And we put in place a measure. We called it net disposable income, which is how much money does an employee have after they pay all of their taxes and their essential living expenses. And for our call center workers, for our entry-level workers, that number, and we measured it location by location, that number was between 4 and 6%. And so no wonder they struggled to make ends meet. We did a study with academia and some nonprofits, and we set a target that no employee inside PayPal should have an NDI less than 20%. So 4 to 5 times where they were. And so we went about slashing the cost of healthcare benefits, raising wages. We gave every single person in PayPal equity. We surrounded it with a financial education package. And today, no employee inside PayPal has less than 18% NDI. And hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, we'll be at our 20% goal. And by the way, just to be clear, that was the day that I think was the most impactful and the most important day when we announced this inside PayPal. The amount of emotion, the amount of pride inside PayPal, the amount of passion that we unleashed was tremendous. And I think in no part our results, which you mentioned, come because we have a passionate, engaged, committed workforce that will do anything for our customers.
Yeah, that had to be an amazing day. And I'm going to guess that when your career is finally ended, you may look back at that and say that might have been one of the best days ever for you. So
it probably will be, for sure.
Congratulations. So what advice, Dan, do you have for other business leaders that you talk to, maybe even watching today on the Zoom, that are navigating this shift? How should they think about their priorities, decisions, looking through this same lens?
Well, I try hard not to kind of sermonize, or if that's a word, other people and other leaders, because, everybody has their own unique set of circumstances. Unless you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, you don't know exactly what they're facing. But my view on this is we all should know what the financial health of our workers are. We should understand that, because I was under the misimpression that our workers were financially healthy because I counted on the market to tell me that. And that's one of the reasons why I always say capitalism needs an upgrade, because for a large proportion of the population, the market isn't working for them. And so we all should know the financial health of our employees. And what does that mean when they're financially stressed? It means they probably can't focus on work quite as well as we expect them. There's absenteeism that tends to spike. And my view on this is everybody ought to figure out, okay, here's the financial health of our employees, and here are the things that we individually can do to be helpful. I don't think we're able to count on the government to solve all these problems. We as CEOs, one of the nice things is we control this completely. And I think what you'll find out is when you start to reward employees in ways that they never would have expected, their loyalty back to the company, their efforts towards satisfying customers, the reduction in attrition, the reduction in training costs as a result, pays off more than you can probably imagine. I just think we all need to think about what values do we hold dear, how do we stand up for them, how do we think about being part of our communities, and how do we truly implement a multi-constituency outlook as opposed to a shareholder-only outlook.
I want to change gears a bit. There's been this massive shift to a digital economy over the last few years, of course, and you guys are right in the heart of all of it. So as we begin to recover from the pandemic, what are some of the innovations that you and PayPal are driving to shape an inclusive digital economy that works for everybody?
I clearly think the pandemic accelerated trends that were already in place, but accelerated them anywhere between 3 and 5 years. And, working out here in the Valley, I've never seen the pace of change be so rapid in my entire career. I mean, just one technological advancement after another. You've got to wrestle with social changes that have happened, the electronification and digitization of almost everything. Cash is dissipating quite rapidly. Even things like credit cards, that form factor is being replaced by mobile phones that will be used not just online to make purchases, but in store to make purchases. More and more people are living their lives digitally. Medicine is becoming, telemedicine. Education is going to change. Every facet of how we work, live, play is going digital. And that is going to clearly challenge all of us from a business model perspective. I do think as we go digital, there are a bunch of super opportunities for all of us to get closer to customers than we've ever been before. But I do think in this day and age, it is really important not to extrapolate from what was, but to really kind of imagine what could be in this new environment. I think the biggest impediment for many of us to our future success is kind of our past success, because I think really what got us to the dance, over the last several years, it's going to be very different in terms of what makes us all successful as businesses going forward. I don't think we should underestimate this new digital paradigm.
Dan, I want to give our audience a chance to ask some questions, and they've emailed some to us, and I want to read a couple of those. So I'm going to paraphrase one, because we've gotten a number of questions about your vision for the future of digital payments, trends that you're seeing. And I guess I'll package this also. So what does your business look like in the next 5 to 10 years? How are we going to pay for things as consumers? I mean, just kind of talk about what we're looking like in 5 years from now in terms of a digital economy.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be more change in the financial system in the next 5 years than we've seen in the previous 30. I think the current system is somewhat antiquated. And I think government officials, central banks, a lot of businesses would all agree with that premise. Why do I say that? First of all, there's still 1.7 billion people in the world who live outside the financial system. In the US, there are at least 70 million adults that are underserved or outside the financial system. And even inside the system itself, it can take days, sometimes a week plus, to get access to your money. If you cash a check, it can take days to get access to that money. If you send an international remittance, it can take a week to 10 days for the recipient to get the money. It's quite expensive. The average take rate around the globe right now in the financial system is 280 basis points to do any transaction. And that's stayed stubbornly at that level for the last 10 years. And the real problem is, if you have a lot of money, that take rate is a lot lower. It could be free or maybe 10 or 15 basis points. But if you're less affluent, that could, a basic transaction can cost you 700, 800 basis points. So it's it's not an inclusive system at all. And so I think you're going to see central banks and governments start to look to digitize fiat currency. There are going to be things like central bank issued digital currencies. You're going to see the underlying technology fundamentally change so that payments are going to become smarter. You'll have smart contracts that can be associated with them. You'll be able to digitize almost everything in smaller chunks so that more people have access to different assets. You'll be able to pay for things. It'll all be done over kind of software apps and over your mobile phone. So a giant amount of change ahead of us in the financial system.
Yeah, thanks. DEC member Susan has a question, I guess, that tags along what you just talked about in terms of, I know PayPal's heavily into crypto now, but specific question, when will Venmo allow customers to buy and pay for services with crypto? And what's Venmo's role in the virtual currency universe?
Yeah, well, Venmo's, another brand that runs on the PayPal platform. And it is, I have well over 70 million people just in the US alone that use Venmo almost on a daily basis. We did announce that by the end of this month, we'll be 100% ramped on Venmo for people to buy, sell, or hold cryptocurrencies. On PayPal right now, if you do a checkout at any of our 31 million merchants, you can use your cryptocurrency balances to pay instantaneously for that transaction, and eventually we'll move that capability over to Venmo as well. But I just think these are just the very beginning use cases of cryptocurrency. I think cryptocurrency, the fascination right now is, is Bitcoin going to be $35,000 or $100,000 or, more or less? I think that's missing the point. The real excitement to me about forms of digital currencies are the incremental utility and benefit they can add into the payments infrastructure. And that's really what we're focused on.
That leads to another question by DEC member Lisa. I watched the DEC host Nikesh Arora recently from Palo Alto Networks about cybersecurity issues. And we learned there's millions of cyber attacks per day, and financial services companies like PayPal are probably a red hot target. So, does that keep you up at night? What are you guys doing in that area, especially PayPal, Venmo, all that stuff?
I think cybersecurity should keep all of us up at night. I think we live in an interconnected world by software. Our cars run by software, our airplanes run by software, our electrical grid, the dams, elevators, payments, it all runs through software. And so if you don't have security at the foundation of that pyramid, I think you're just asking for trouble. The average American business is attacked 4 million times a year from a cybersecurity perspective. Financial services companies are attacked well over 1 billion times a year. And you can't stop people from using identity. A consumer identity is stolen every 2 seconds. And so we barely look at user ID and password because we know most of them are already out on the dark web. Every single transaction, we look at over 150 variables in, by the way, 30 milliseconds to establish, is that really you or not? Because we really can't trust those credentials to verify that it's you, but we do, and I won't talk about what those are because we don't want cyber criminals to know that, but you can be sure that this is very top of mind for all financial institutions, and PayPal is probably one of the very best at security, but we'll never rest on that.
DEC member Justin, we're going to change gears again, wants to know your thoughts on the future of work and your viewpoint on a 100% remote workforce, or just talk about work from home, remote workforce in general. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us have had our muscles atrophy in terms of what it's like to work in an office. Like I'm here at home. It's like Groundhog Day every single day for me. I've been here for 14 or 15 months right now. We've started experimenting, opening up across the world. We're open in China, Australia, Singapore, and we are going to start opening in other locations. And we'll probably open here in the US, sometime in the September, October timeframe. I think it's important that we maintain the flexibility that we've learned that we can have during the pandemic. I don't think we're ever going to come back to a 5 days in the office type of schedule, but I do think it is important that teams come back to the office on certain days. We're probably going to go somewhere like a 3-2, 3 days in the office, 2 days kind of up to the individual. I do think there's a lot of benefit in people coming together and being close to each other. I mean, our productivity went up by almost 36% during this work from home era. I think we'll keep the lessons we've learned there, but make sure that, all the people we've hired, 5,000 plus people probably in the pandemic who have never been to the office, never met their boss. And, you've got to have those relationships, I think, at least to be able to be the most productive in terms of a workforce.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about that, and where my mind is at right now is I like the theory. If you're transactional, you can probably just stay home and do that stuff. But for teams that have to collaborate and innovate new ideas, products, services, projects, everybody's tired of the Zoom stuff. So that works best when everybody's together.
Just really quick on that, Steve. I think we just ought to not be dogmatic in the way that we come back. This is going to be an experiment. We're going to learn, we're going to adjust. And we'll take things in 3-month chunks and then see how they're playing out.
I agree. DEC member Michelle, Dan, you've got a lot of people pushing you into politics. Are we going to see that happen someday?
Yeah, I know my name's been bandied about a lot on that. I think I can make a tremendous difference kind of where I am, and I feel very fortunate and very excited about what I can do here as being the CEO of PayPal. I do think, a lot of people call me an activist CEO. I just think of myself as sort of a responsible citizen, honestly. I try not to have any of our decisions that we make at PayPal, whether it was leaving North Carolina because of the bathroom bill or, standing up for Black Lives Matter or so many other things that we've done. I try not to make any decisions within the prism of partisan politics. I really try to stay true to the values of PayPal. And I think if you don't stand true to those values, then they're just words on a wall. They're just propaganda. You need to take action. And there's no way that a big consumer brand company like PayPal can stay fully out of the cultural wars. We need to stand up for what we believe in. We need to be thoughtful. We need to be consistent in our actions. But we can't hide anywhere. We're part of our communities. For me, I have no tolerance for discrimination. I have no tolerance for hatred or violence. And those are attributes, I think, honestly, that aren't red attributes or blue attributes. I think they're, these are values that are red, white, and blue. And that's what we're going to try and stand up for.
I greatly respect your thought leadership there. So thank you. So final question. You host a podcast series that I listen to called Never Stand Still. And you always finish with the final question. Now I'm going to turn the tables and ask you. Along the way, you tell people we always get knocked down. How does DanShulman tell people to get back up and move forward?
Well, I think, again, this comes from experience of actually being knocked down in a ring or feeling exhausted at some point. And I remember my instructor, my sensei, saying, Dan, one thing you Westerners always think is that somebody's coming to help you, or that your attacker is going to have mercy. And he always said, like, once you get into the ring, no one is coming to help you. Like, you're in there on your own. And so my view of this is we're all going to get knocked down in life, every single one of us. It's impossible not to, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. And it's about, literally, it's about getting back up again. It is having that determination that we may not be able to control our environment completely, but we can control ourselves. And that's really the only thing we can control completely. And so I try to embrace that philosophy. And I always think, in the cool light of the new dawn, things will always be a little bit better than they were the evening before. And I just try and stay very even-keeled about things in general.
Impressive thoughts, Dan. Thank you so much. When's the last time you were in Detroit, by the way?
When was the last time I was in Detroit? Actually, not that long ago, because a good cousin of mine lives there and got married there. So probably 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years.
Great. I hope you got a chance to see a lot of the tremendous progress we're making here in the city.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable.
Good. That's awesome. Well, a huge thank you, DanShulman. You're an impressive individual. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for being with us today. Good luck to you. Good luck to PayPal. And we want to host you in person next time you're in Detroit. So let us know if it can be helpful. And again, thank you so much. And congratulations on the Fortune accolades.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you. Thanks to Team PayPal. Your people were great to work with, Dan. And thanks to my team. And thanks for all of you people watching today for continuing to support the Detroit Economic Club. Your membership, once again, is very important to us. So have a strong week. Stay safe. Get a darn vaccine. And hope to see you at our next DEC event soon. Goodbye, everybody.